The ride to the restaurant was silent, not the peaceful kind, but the kind that weighed heavy on your chest. Jungkook sat beside you, his gaze fixed on the road, his hands gripping the steering wheel. Jungkook sat beside you, his gaze fixed on the road, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. Not a single word was exchanged between you. You stole a glance at him, but his expression remained unreadable, cold, distant, and completely unaffected by your presence. You sighed softly, turning your eyes towards the passing streets, trying to distract yourself from the growing discomfort in the air. The moment you stepped inside the restaurant, you felt suffocated. Jungkook walked ahead, his broad frame radiating authority as he approached a man seated at a VIP table. James, Jungkook greeted with a firm handshake. Ah, Mr. John, long time no see. James smirked before his eyes shifted towards you, a look you immediately didn't like. This is my secretary, Ryan. Jungkook introduced you. You bowed politely, keeping a professional smile. Nice to meet you, Mr. James. But instead of responding right away, James' gaze lingered on you, his eyes slowly trailing from your face to the rest of you. Your smile faltered, discomfort crawling up your spine. Jungkook, standing beside you, noticed his jaw tensed, but he remained silent. James finally extended his hand for a handshake. Pleasure to meet you, Miss Ryan. You hesitated. Something about his smirk didn't sit right with you. Still not wanting to be rude, you reluctantly shook his hand only to feel his grip tighten around you. Your breath hitched, his fingers squeezed just a little too much, his thumb slowly brushing against your skin. You tried to pull away, but he held on for a moment longer than necessary, grinning. Jungkook watched. He saw everything, yet he said nothing. You finally freed your hand subtly, rubbing your palm against your dress, feeling disgusted. Shall we sit? Jihan, James' secretary, finally spoke, breaking the awkwardness. Jungkook gave a curt nod before taking his seat at the table. You quickly followed, placing a safe distance between yourself and James. James started discussing the project, but Jungkook suddenly cut him off. Let's eat first, Jungkook said, his tone sharper than before. His dark eyes bored into James, a dangerous glint flashing through them. James blinked before nodding. Of course, let's eat first. A waiter arrived, ready to take orders. I'll have the grilled steak. Grilled steak with red wine, James said smoothly. Jihan ordered next, followed by Jungkook. Then it was your turn. You glanced at the menu, your eyes widening slightly at the prices. Everything here cost more than your monthly groceries. You swallowed hard, feeling nervous. Just water, please, you said softly, forcing a small smile. The waiter hesitated. Just water, ma'am? Yes, you nodded, avoiding everyone's gaze. Jungkook's eyes flicked to you, his fingers pausing on the table. You're not eating? He asked, his voice low but firm. You turned to him with another forced smile. I'm not hungry. A lie, a big fat lie, but you didn't want to embarrass yourself. Jungkook remained silent for a moment before looking at the waiter. Same as mine, he said without glancing at you. Your eyes widened slightly surprised. The waiter nodded and left, and you looked down, smiling faintly. He's still caring about me. But just as that thought warmed your heart, Jungkook's cold voice snapped you back to reality. Don't think I cared about you, he said, scrolling through his phone as if the conversation wasn't worth his time. I just don't want my employees getting weak. If they become weak, they won't focus on work. You pressed your lips together, trying to control your laugh. You knew Jungkook well, too well. Of course, Mr. John, you said, biting back a smile. You are absolutely right. This is purely professional concern, nothing else. Jungkook glanced at you from the corner of his eye, catching the teasing glint in your expression. He scoffed and looked away. Good that you understand. You hide your smile behind your water glass. Maybe he had changed, maybe he had become ruthless and distant. But some things about Jungkook, they never changed. Lunch was over, but the tension at the table was far from gone. Jihan, James' secretary, was explaining the project in detail. His voice was smooth and professional, but there was something off about the atmosphere. Because while Jihan was speaking, there was a staring competition happening right across the table. James' lustful gaze was locked onto you, his eyes scanning you like you were something to be devoured. On the other hand, Jungkook was glaring at him like he wanted to rip him apart limb by limb. His sharp jaw clenched, his fingers tapped impatiently against the table, and his dark eyes burned with something deadly. James, however, seemed oblivious to the danger he was in. You, completely unaware of the silent battle going on, were focused on Jihan's explanation, taking mental notes and nodding at key points. After a few minutes, Jihan finished and turned to Jungkook. That was the overview of proposal, Mr. John. Now we would love to hear your thoughts. Jungkook didn't even spare him a glance. Instead, he tilted his chin slightly, his voice deep and authoritative. Ryan, please explain the financial aspects. You nodded and straightened in your seat. Yes, sir. You started speaking, detailing the potential profits, share distribution, and company benefits. James, instead of listening, continued to shamelessly eye you. Jungkook's fingers curled into fists under the table. His patience was running out. By the time you finished, you turned to Jungkook, expecting him to take over and finalize the deal. After all, this was an important agreement for Dawson Enterprises, now Gion Enterprises. Everything now depends on his decision. You waited for him to speak, but instead of addressing the business proposal, Jungkook turned his head and stared James down with a look so dangerous it could kill. Then, in a slow, icy voice, he spoke. There are too many errors in your project. James blinked. Pardon? Jungkook leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. I don't see this collaboration working out. The proposal has major flaws. Jihan immediately interjected. We are open to adjustments, Mr. John. If you could specify the concern, we would be happy to revise the proposal. Jungkook's gaze remained locked onto James. Your calculations on projected venue are exaggerated. James stiffened. I assure you our numbers are well researched and incorrect. Jungkook cut him off sharply. The profit margin don't match market trends. Your proposal lacks scalability, not to mention your company's previous track record is unimpressive. James loosened his tie suddenly, looking uncomfortable. He gulped. Jungkook wasn't just rejecting the deal, he was humiliating him. You gawked at Jungkook, your eyes wide. This deal was important, very important. If he dropped it, John Enterprises could lose millions. You wanted to say something to remind him to the financial risk. But when you met Jungkook's cold, piercing gaze, your words died in your throat. You swallowed and looked down, biting your lip. You knew better than to argue with him. Jihan tried again. Mr. John, we truly believe this partnership will be beneficial. Jungkook held up a hand, cutting him off. I'm not interested, he said in a tone that left no room for negotiation. James clenched his jaw. His confidence had completely shattered under Jungkook's intense glare. Jungkook's finger tapped on the table, his voice calm but dripping with dominance. We are done here. James and Jihan exchanged worried glances. Jihan opened his mouth to protest, but Jungkook was already standing up, but James stopped him. The atmosphere in the restaurant was thick with tension. James, despite the deal slipping through his fingers, understood Jungkook's reasoning and nodded in agreement. I respect your decision, Mr. John, he said with a polite smile. I look forward to working with you in the future. Jungkook didn't reply. He simply gave a slow nod, his expression unreadable. James extended his hand for a handshake. After a second of hesitation, Jungkook shook it, firm, professional, cold. Then James turned to you. It was a pleasure meeting you, Miss Ryan. Your body tensed slightly, but still you extended your hand. The moment his palm met yours, James' grip was a little too firm, his thumb brushing against your skin in a way that sent a wave of discomfort through you. But what caught your attention wasn't James' hand, it was the man standing beside you. Jungkook. His jaw was clenched so tight you thought it might crack. His fingers drummed against the table, his dark eyes narrowed and locked on James' lingering touch. And that's when an idea popped into your head. A terrible, reckless, absolutely dangerous idea. You were going to make him jealous. Suppressing a smirk, you flipped your hair over your shoulder and met James' gaze with a soft, almost playful smile. The pleasure is all mine, Mr. James, you said sweetly. Jungkook's fingers stopped drumming. James' eyes lit up at your response and he leaned in slightly. You know, I must say, you are even more beautiful up close. Jungkook's muscles stiffened. You hummed, tapping your chin. Is that so? Absolutely. James continued smoothly. It's a shame we only met today. If I had known someone like you was working for John Enterprises, I would have scheduled this meeting a long time ago. Your lips curled up. You could feel Jungkook fuming. You pretended to blush, tucking a strand of hair behind your ear. You flatter me, James. Jungkook exhaled through his nose. James chuckled, clearly encouraged by your response. I'm just being honest, and since we will be working together in the future, I would love to get to know you better outside of work. You raised an eyebrow, pretending to be clueless. Oh, how so? Jungkook's grip on his fist tightened. Grinned. How about a date this Friday? Your entire body stiffened for a split second. This was just a game. You were only trying to make Jungkook jealous, not actually go out with James. But now you had trapped yourself. Still, you forced a bright smile, ignoring the unease creeping up your spine. This Friday, that sounds perfect. The second those words left your mouth, you felt it. Jungkook's rage, his aura darkened, his eyes burning with something dangerous. James seemed obvious, grinning. Great, I'll text you the details. Jihan nodded politely before the two of them finally left the restaurant. The moment they stepped out, you barely had time to breathe. Jungkook's hand wrapped around your wrist, yanking you around so forcefully you almost stumbled. What the hell was that? He hissed, his face mere inches from yours. You blinked up at him, feigning innocence. What was that? What was what? Jungkook's eyes darkened. Don't play games with me, Ryan. You tilted your head. I don't know what you mean, sir. His grip on your wrist tightened. Are you out of your mind? He spat. Flirting with him right in front of me? You raised an eyebrow. Why do you care? Jungkook let out a bitter chuckle, his finger flexing around your wrist before he pushed you back slightly. Care, he repeated mockingly. Don't flatter yourself. You smirked. Then why are you so angry? Jungkook's jaw ticked. You took a small step closer. Are you jealous, Jungkook? He chuckled darkly, stepping back. Jealous? He ran a hand through his hair, laughing humorlessly. Don't make me laugh. You crossed your arms, raising an eyebrow. Then why are you so worked up? His smile disappeared in an instant. His expression twisted into something cruel. Because, he sneered, stepping closer. I already know your type. You frowned slightly, but before you could respond, he continued. James is your next target, isn't he? His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Let me guess, you will entertain him for a few weeks or maybe years. Let him believe you actually care, and then, once you have used him for your benefit, you will move on to the next one. Your eyes widened. Excuse me, you said through gritted teeth. Jungkook scoffed, shaking his head. Don't act so innocent. In these 5 years, I wonder how many men you have gone through for your own pleasure. Your hand curled into fist. Watch your mouth, Jungkook. He smirked. Hit a nerve, did I? Maybe taehyung too. Your entire body trembled in anger. Without thinking, you raised your hand to slap him. But he caught your wrist midair. His fingers wrapped around your wrist tightly. Your wrist tightly, stopping your attack before it could land. You both stared at each other, breathing heavily. Then Jungkook jerked your hand away harshly, stepping back. His next words cut deeper than a knife. You are nothing but a whore. You used mints for pleasure. Your breath hitched. The restaurant spun around you. You opened your mouth to defend yourself, to scream, to do something, but before you could, he turned on his heel and walked away, leaving you standing there alone. Jungkook sat on his bed, his phone gripped tightly in his hand as he stared at the screen. The dim light from the beside lamp cast shadows across his sharp features, but the crease between his brows deepened with each passing second. He tapped the call button again. The number you are trying to reach is currently switched off. Jungkook exhaled sharply, running a frustrated hand through his hair. His legs bounced anxiously as he clenched his jaw. Why is her phone off? He had been calling you for hours now, ever since he returned from his mission. A whole month without seeing you, without hearing your voice properly. He thought the first thing he would do after coming back was hear your sleepy voice whining about how much you missed him. But instead, all he got was silence. Jungkook dialed again. Nothing. He cursed under his breath. He didn't have your best friend Leah's number, and it was driving him insane. The door creaked open slightly, and Jenna, his older sister, peeked inside. Jungkook. Jungkook barely glanced at her, his focus still on his phone, as if willing to it to ring. Jenna stepped inside, narrowing her eyes. You look stressed. What's going on? Jungkook sighed, finally locking his phone and tossing it onto the bed beside him. It's fine. Jenna's brows furrowed. What about her? I have been calling her since I got back. Her phone is switched off. His voice was tight with frustration and worry. Jenna blinked before rolling her eyes with a small chuckle. That's it? Jungkook, she probably just went to sleep. Jungkook shook his head and his jaw clenching. No, it's not her time to sleep yet. Jenna raised an eyebrow. And how do you know her sleep schedule better than she does? Because I'm her boyfriend for 2 years. Jungkook gritted out, standing up from the bed and grabbing his jacket. And she always messages me before sleeping, at least a good night text. She hasn't done that tonight, and her phone has been off since evening. Jenna sighed, watching him slip on his boots. You are seriously overreacting. Ryan always turns off her phone before bed. Not this early, Jungkook snapped. Something's wrong. Jenna stepped forward, placing a hand on his arm to stop him. Jungkook, it's late. You just came back from your mission. You are exhausted. Do you really think Ryan would want you driving to her place in the middle of the night when she's probably fast asleep? Jungkook's finger curled into a fist. And what if she's not asleep? What if something happened? Jenna exhaled, softening slightly. She knew Jungkook cared for you deeply, but he was always like this, too intense, too protective. She's fine, Jungkook, trust me. If something happened, you would be the first person she would call. Jungkook bit the inside of his cheek, his frustration bubbling. But Jenna squeezed his shoulder. Get some sleep, idiot. If you are still this worried in the morning, go check on her then. But right now, you need rest. You look like a mess. Jungkook sighed, glancing at the clock. 10:39 p.m. He hated to admit it, but Jenna was right. He was exhausted, and if he had wanted to be alert for whatever came next, he needed at least a few hours of sleep. Fine, he muttered, but if she doesn't pick up first thing in the morning, I'm going to her place. Jenna smoked. Of course you are. Now sleep. Jungkook sat back down as Jenna left, closing the door behind her. But even as he lay back against the pillow, His mind wouldn't stop racing. Something didn't feel right, and Jungkook had learned long ago his instincts were never wrong.